Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Workplace Options Wellbeing at Work podcast series. I'm Bianca Bowie, Ambassador Program Manager here at Workplace Options. Last year, we launched a series called The Peer Approach to Supporting Workplace Wellbeing, where we've had the pleasure of speaking with several guests about the Wellbeing Ambassador Program. So far, we've heard from people like Mo Khan, a Senior Account Manager who has helped oversee Ambassador Program implementation for organizations, Shelby Lane, the Director of Global Clinical Relations, who assists with the facilitation of ongoing ambassador peer support groups, and most recently, Ashley Owens, the Global Mental Health and Safety Lead at KBR, who shared how the program has made a real impact there at their organization. For today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by two women whose vision and expertise have been the driving force behind the creation and growth of the Wellbeing Ambassador Program. Mary Ellen Gornick, the program's founder and managing partner at the Center of Organizational Effectiveness, and Dr. Kenneth Thigpen-Harris, Chief Clinical Officer here at WPO, and the mastermind behind the questionnaire used to screen ambassadors for the program. Both are here to shed light on why choosing the right people to serve as well-being ambassadors is so important, and why screening volunteers is a cornerstone of building a strong program. Today, we'll talk about how the ambassador program was designed with that in mind, the process behind creating the screening questionnaire, and how the program uniquely equips ambassadors to succeed in their role. But first, just a little bit about the program for our first-time listeners. The Wellbeing Ambassadors are a part of an organization's strategy to create a safe and psychologically healthy workplace. Workplace Options flagship training program for Wellbeing Ambassadors has been extremely popular since it was first launched in 2021, and since has been the given stamp of approval by the International Institute of Risk and Safety Management. Through this program, participants receive extensive training to support them in their role as a Wellbeing Ambassador. The program equips them with the skills to support those experiencing a mental health challenge, raise awareness about mental well-being, recognize signs of concern, intervene appropriately, and even manage conversations in an effective and sensitive manner, all which is crucial to the success and effectiveness of an organization's well-being ambassadors is careful consideration of just who is chosen for the role. It was with this truth in mind that WPO developed the questionnaire used to screen candidates for this particular program. To help us understand this process in more detail, I'm excited now to turn to Dr. K, who's played a key role in developing that questionnaire and bringing this careful screening process to life. Thank you so much for you both being here today. Dr. K, can you walk us through the main components of this questionnaire and what it is designed to assess? Exactly how do you determine which questions were most important to include, and what kind of qualities or traits does the questionnaire help identify in potential ambassadors?
Thank you, Bianca. It's such a pleasure to join you here today and to speak about the Ambassador Program and to be alongside Mary Ellen Gornick today. When we think about the questionnaire for the Ambassador Program, it's super important that we have a structured process in determining who these ambassadors are going to be. It's not of everyone raise your hand. It's a free-for-all. So in designing the questionnaire to support this, we broke this questionnaire down into 6 distinct sections. The first one is overall a general section. It's really about getting to know the person and establishing a baseline of understanding of their knowledge, their motivation for wanting to be an ambassador, as well as any present or past experience they may have. In doing this, it ensures the alignment between both the employee and the organization related to their expectations, maybe their well-being strategies, and their goals. The second section is in regards to their character, the qualities that build trust, that they're genuine and authentic individuals, really taking a look at not only how these individuals view themselves, but how do other people view them. When you have a credible person who's respected, people are going to be more likely to open up to them and go seek that support. And that's ultimately what you want with an ambassador. The third section is around culture. And this is really about, we want individuals that will strengthen the organization culture. Sometimes when we talk about culture, we talk about we want people to fit in. And it's not necessarily about fitting in, but how do they shape the work-life integration and the belonging that people have? We don't want everybody to be the same. We want people to be able to speak up and share those unique ideas. It's also about, it serves as a bridge between both leadership and employees and ensures that well-being initiatives are relevant, that they have the reach, and that we ultimately get the results that we want. Something, Bianca, that I often see is that leadership sometimes think people want one thing, and then you have the ambassadors or the direct frontline employees thinking that they need something else, and there's a misalignment. So hopefully this ambassador is someone who can bridge those two pieces for people. The fourth section is in regards to confidentiality. They are going to hear sensitive information at the end of the day. People are coming to them. They may be hearing way more than what they bargained for or even anticipated. But at the end of the day, we want that information to be kept confidential when needed. Because, of course, there are going to be some times where there's great risk that are there or severe risk, and we want people to take action on those. But for the most part, the service is confidential. We want people to listen and to be able to refer people, and at the same time, of course, maintaining that privacy. With the confidentiality, this section is super important because it's non-negotiable. You know, you can't go share someone. This is not water cooler talk where you can just start spreading this information. Because if you do, it can damage the entire program. It's ultimately the foundation of psychological safety, that trust, and that confidentiality is part of that. Section 5 is in regards to compassion. You want someone who has a true heart for well-being, that they're passionate about it, they're compassionate about it, and they have empathy. It's about that empathy in action for individual. And when people have that ability to be compassionate, they're able to support individuals a lot better. And at the end of the day, compassion is about fostering inclusion and resilience. The section 6 is about self-care. And this is understanding how individuals take care and manage their own boundaries and their own well-being. Because not only are they walking through life and living day to day with their own challenges, maybe stressors, but now they're also supporting someone else. We want to ensure that they have the ability to cope with not only their own, but other people's challenges that may be coming their way as well. At the end of the day, with the self-care section, it's really, we're able to take a look to ensure that people are not getting burned out. So these are 6 different sections that we felt that were super helpful in designing the questionnaire to get ambassadors that were going to be dedicated and committed. Because at the end of the day, these categories reflect not only the head, but it reflects the heart and the habits of well-being.
Thank you for that, Dr. K. So speaking of all of that, Mary Ellen, once candidates are carefully selected and screened and selected, how does the WPO Ambassador Program uniquely train them to serve as effective ambassadors? And to add on to that, what sets the program apart when it comes to the focus areas and the components of the program?
Well, thanks, Bianca, and thanks for inviting me to this and to be here with my colleague, Kenneth. I just want to say before I answer this question that I've had the privilege, and I really consider it a privilege, of interviewing many candidates with the screening tool that Kenneth put together. And it really is an incredible tool that brings out the best in the individuals that you're interviewing. You know, it really gets them going. You know, we ask a question about if they could be any animal, what would that animal be? And, you know, we get everything from, I'd like to be my cat, to some exotic animal because of its, you know, grace and beauty and the role that it plays in the ecosystem. So I think that, you know, it's a simple tool, but it's like incredibly effective at really getting to kind of the heart of the why do I want to participate in this role. So I don't often get a chance to say thanks, Kenneth, but it's really an important tool. So back to the question you asked me, Bianca. So once the ambassadors are trained, what sets the program apart? Well, I think sort of the key item that sets the program apart is this is a workplace program. So we're really focusing on what the individual experiences in the workplace, how that affects their behavior, and how the individuals at work are able to do their jobs given the kind of the pressures that they experience in their roles. So when I say it's about the workplace, if the ambassador is looking for signs and indicators that someone is emotionally compromised, they're really going to see a certain set of behaviors that you're only going to see in the workplace, that you're not going to see in another setting. The other thing is that the ambassadors that we train are really in a unique role. They're not mental health counselors. They're not professional mental health counselors. And we're not asking them to diagnose anything. We're asking them to support their colleagues, to listen, to really listen, and to help them look at what are the options that exist in the workplace to help relieve their situation. So those are two of the things that I think uniquely set this program apart. That's not always an easy thing to train, because a lot of this, when you're supporting somebody who's in a severely compromised mental health situation, but you're not a counselor. So I think the natural inclination is, oh, I know about depression, I know about anxiety, I know, and then I'm going to put them in a bucket. No buckets here. We don't have buckets. They just listen and they look and they suggest ways that they can help, and how, the employee assistance program can help, how accommodations through the workplace could help, how talking to their manager can help. So, it's a very, very unique role, and that's why you need a very specific person with a specific skill set and understanding of the role to be in the role of ambassador.
That's great information, Mary Ellen. Thank you for providing us with that background. Going to throw it back to Dr. K for a second. Dr. K, can you comment on the wide assumption that if someone has recovered from a mental health crisis, that automatically makes them a successful candidate to become an ambassador?
Yes, great question, Bianca. And while we were developing the questionnaire, Mary Ellen and I talked about this particular piece, because you often have the people raising their hands saying, yes, I have had mental health challenges, and that doesn't exclude or include them from being a part of it. But I think you have to realize where are they at on their journey. I have this saying that says, you can't lead while you bleed. And ultimately what that means is, as part of the being ambassador, you are a type of leader. You are supporting people through their challenges, through their, disappointments, whatever it may be. And I know if you create that visual of someone leading and the different lives that they're touching, and if they're bleeding along that journey, they're leaving that on other people. And so I know it probably maybe create a little bit of a yucky visual, but think about that. You don't want someone trying to lead while they bleed. And ultimately, I think another way to kind of put that is, I'm sure many of us have heard of trauma bonding, where someone has gone through their own challenges or issues, and they begin to connect with people over the trauma. And that's forming the connection. And that's not what being an ambassador is about. It's not about saying, let's do this kumbaya and kind of talk about our traumas to get through it together. That's not what this is about. You want people who are passionate, but let me tell you, this is not the time to be healing on your journey. If people want to use this as part of that healing journey, it's probably not the right time for them. And what's interesting is, like Meg, I've also had the opportunity to do some of these interviews with people using the questionnaire. And I can remember there was a time where someone, by going through the questions, they started to unveil and at the same time unravel during that interview, because they were not healed. And when we start asking those questions, certain things come out. And so I often wonder, if this was an organization who did not do the questionnaires or who did not ask the questions, but they raised their hand and said, me, I want to be an ambassador, and they had that person being an ambassador and having those conversations with people, I often wonder what that would have looked like, or what that would have meant for the organization who's trying to build this program around well-being. So It kind of ties back in, Bianca, to your initial question about the questionnaire. But again, the current question that you're asking is about, what's the assumption that people who are recovered are the best people, or they make the best people? I think at the end of the day, recovery is a powerful story, no matter what journey people have been on. But advocacy is a skill. And Mary Ellen was saying that in the very beginning of, you want people who are trained, who also have the skill, and who are also being supported through the journey. And the last thing I would say about that is you want people who have that emotional readiness, but they are not. You want people who are grounded, people who are trustworthy, and people who are culturally aware and equipped to support. So Bianca, that's how I would answer that question.
Thank you, Dr. K. Mary Ellen, though the screening portion of the program is an add-on service, what are some possible outcomes if organizations decide that they don't want to do the screening?
I think we've had some examples over the years that we've been doing this. I think that one of the traits, that you really look for in this role, this supporting role, is patience. Because it's not, it sounds really like cool that, the ambassador is going to support somebody in a conversation. They're going to listen to what their needs are, and then they're going to, maybe recommend a couple of places that the individual can go to access resources that may be available through the company. So it sounds like that's 1 + 1 = 2. That dynamic could probably take 3 or 4 weeks if the person isn't ready to take the action. So the support might happen over several conversations. And if you've got somebody who isn't patient, they can really get frustrated themselves, feel like maybe they're not doing what they're supposed to do, or they're failing, in this role. Another thing is, flexibility. And, Kenneth talked about you can't lead while you bleed. And, that sometimes if you're in that situation and you have received an intervention that worked for you, you begin to think that intervention is good for a lot of people. And so you're not as sort of selective in your thinking or in the way you're referring resources. And so, you've got to be kind of flexible. Everyone has their own issue, and they have their preferences, and they want to handle things on their own time. So it's, what happens often is that you need to be flexible. If it doesn't look like, this way of assisting and supporting is going to work, I might have to try something else, which is why we have the Wellbeing Promoter Support feature of the program. It's an ambassador can call our clinical specialty team and get very specific advice on how to manage an individual situation where they might need some help because they feel like they're not being effective, or that the individual maybe is needing something more than they can provide. So I would say kind of patience and flexibility, and those two go beyond like your position in the organization. I mean, we've had individuals who were, very senior in an HR department, and we've had to suggest that maybe this isn't the right time for them and that they might want to choose another role. We've had individuals who we've screened, and, culturally they just weren't the right fit for what the organization was trying to build through the ambassador program. So, and I think one of the reasons that we feel this screening is so important is because the person that you connect with in this role really is the person that they're making the program effective. It's really the driver for the effectiveness of the program. And if you don't have the right person in the position, having the level of conversations that are supportive and will intervene, it detracts from the program and it makes it less effective.
Well, thank you both for teaching us more about the screening component of the ambassador program. Thank you for joining us today. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. To learn more about the Wellbeing Ambassador program and the difference it can make in your workplace, visit consulting.workplaceoptions.com, or you can email us directly at wpoglobalconsulting@workplaceoptions.com. Thank you all for listening and take care.